BBOR Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. BlackBoxNid88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to BBOR, the home of true crime talk radio and your premier destination for unsolved mysteries, criminal psychology, and exploring the dark side of cyberspace. My name is Ned DeHaan, and I am your host, as well as the creator of AstroPsych 400 here on YouTube, and regular contributor to the Zodiac Killer channel. And a great way to support these shows is just by listening to some more content. But you can also go over to Amazon.com and have a look at the book Killer on a White Horse, written by me, Ned DeHaan. It is a novel, murder mystery, inspired by the Zodiac Manson connection, but it is indeed fictional. However, who doesn't love a good mystery? And there is always the TeeSpring page. Feel free to check out some of the merchandise. And remember, being weird is not a crime. Let the show begin. Okay, hello everybody. Today is Friday, another Anything Goes Friday. Welcome to the show. How's everybody doing? Now, recently on the posts that I make for this channel, I've been sharing some of the older episodes about the Kennedy assassination. In 1963, John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, was killed, and there is still a lot of debate and discussion that happens to this day about who was responsible for his death. And once a day here on Black Box Online Radio, I share an older episode in the posts, and I also ask you guys a polling question. So I'm going to be responding to some of that material, as well as some of the comments from the older episodes that I've done about the Kennedy assassination. And the diehard followers of Black Box Online Radio will know that I do a segment every Monday about the Zodiac Killer. I also do a segment on Wednesdays about Jack the Ripper. The Kennedy assassination is one that I haven't talked about too much on this channel. There are more than 1,000 episodes of Black Box Online Radio, and only, let me say, 6 episodes have been made about the Kennedy assassination. And I totally accept that I am an outsider, and I'm coming at this from an outside perspective. But sometimes outside eyes can have a different view of the situation. So in addition to following along with the posts and the polls, I invite you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to Black Box Online Radio. And you can also visit some of the links in the description box, one of which is through BuyMeACoffee.com. BuyMeACoffee.com/BlackBoxNid88 allows you to make a donation or contribution to help support the show, and anybody who makes a donation will get a shout out on Zodiac Monday. And let's let the first question and comment section discussion about the Kennedy assassination on Black Box Online Radio begin. And our first comment comes to us from Ross from Planet X Filmworks, who left a comment on Kennedy assassination. Did the Soviets kill JFK? It was the CIA-FBI conjunction. A man who looks like George Sr. was in Dallas that day, although the pic is very low-res. JFK film by Oliver Stone breaks it down very well. There is a good breakdown on YouTube. They found the FBI agent shooter's prints in the book depository. Oswald was in the break room, and I don't think he took the shot, but he may have handled the rifle at some point. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald has been labeled as the assassin of President John F. Kennedy, and then Oswald was, of course, shot by Jack Ruby. So there are so many theories as to who was behind it, because some people do have a lone gunman theory, and they believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was the shooter, but he was coerced or maybe even brainwashed or duped or persuaded into committing the shooting by a larger entity, by a different entity. But Ross, of course, here has stated something to the contrary, that Oswald may have handled the gun, but he didn't take the shot. Okay, here's the issue with the Kennedy assassination. There are so many different people that would have wanted John F. Kennedy dead. Firstly, you're talking about a CIA-FBI conjunction. The CIA conjunction, the CIA being responsible for Kennedy's assassination, it has been perhaps one of the most widely discussed theories out there, and that heavily stems from the idea that there is this controlling element in the American government, in the international governments, that there are elites, that there are oligarchs, there are globalists, there is a new world order. And John F. Kennedy was one of the presidents that didn't want to play ball with the globalists and the new world order. He stood up to them, or he was acting somewhat rogue in their minds, so they had him assassinated, they had him removed. They took him out because he wouldn't go along with their globalist agenda. And before anyone thinks that that's just a wild conspiracy theory, that might be the single biggest theory in the entire Kennedy assassination, and they could use somebody like Lee Harvey Oswald as a dupe or a patsy. And Oswald's own admission, right? The very famous line was, "I am the patsy." The first episode I ever did about JFK on this channel was called JFK The Forgotten Truth, and I was responding to some comments that were made by the radio host Mike Francesa, who is out of the New York area, and he talked about how JFK was his favorite president, but he said that the media really only wanted to zone in on one thing nowadays, JFK messing around with his girlfriends. That's all they want to say about John F. Kennedy. And that was back in the time when Black Box Online Radio was just sharing things with you guys that, like, whatever subject I was listening to, I would have that moment where I would be thinking, now wait a second, is that really true? And that's what an episode of Black Box Online Radio used to be. And I used to aim for talking for 20 minutes about that particular subject. And the reason why I chose to do an episode on that was because, number one, the media only wants to talk about JFK messing around with his girlfriends. No, because I believe that the conspiracy theories surrounding the Kennedy assassination have never gone away. They've never been downplayed, and people do want to explore those types of subjects. And the largest one of which would be the CIA connection, that the CIA had some responsibility in the planning or orchestration of President Kennedy's assassination. And there are so many other things that would come to mind that get discussed in the media about JFK other than just messing around with his girlfriends. And if you'd like to hear more, you can go to that episode, JFK, The Forgotten Truth. And right now I would like to read one comment from that episode, and it comes to us from Rick Hansen, who says that from everything always presented, JFK courted the Germans, married a Grecian, angered the mafioso, challenged the Russians, and flaunted his affairs and was assassinated in a grand conspiracy. How much was true? That would depend who told the story, I suppose. However, there is agreement about a lot of it. Now, there's a single piece of that comment from Rick Hansen that I would like to respond to, and that relates to the mafia connection, because some people that it was not Oswald being brainwashed by the CIA, it was the mafia. And then there are other people out there who think that both of them are coming together. And one of these people would have been Michael Collins Piper. And back in 2020, somebody made a requested topic for the episode for Black Box Online Radio, and I always try to respond to your requested ideas for future episodes. And they said, would you be interested in doing a multi-part series on the Mossad and planning the JFK assassination? The Mossad coming from Israel, of course. And I was introduced to the world of Michael Collins Piper, and I have to give a shout out to Walter Sobchak, longtime follower of the show, who said that at first he thought this idea that the Mossad being responsible for the Kennedy assassination was going to be absolute bunk, but after listening to the episodes from Michael Collins Piper online, it seems like, okay, there actually is this type of defendable theory that is being put forward, and it's not anti-Semitic. It's not trying to just trash talk Israel. No, absolutely not. The theory is that pro-Israeli elements of the CIA and pro-Israeli elements of organized crime conspired together to have JFK assassinated. And on one of the episodes, there actually is a post here that was written out by David Chow, who says, these are the list of groups or entities or people that may have wanted to have President Kennedy assassinated. David says, I listed what you listed and I'll show how I rearranged it. Talking about who could have been responsible for the Kennedy assassination, who could have been behind the shooting, the mafia, the U.S. government in some nonspecific way, the CIA, Fidel Castro and the Cubans, special interests, political groups, the Klan, Lyndon Baines Johnson, that's President LBJ, Soviets, Communists, KGB, multiple people, nonspecific, foreign nations, big business, oil, it's big business / oil, Secret Service, and the Israeli Mossad. Now, some of you might be thinking, Secret Service? How on earth could the Secret Service be responsible for the Kennedy assassination? Well, I just read off a comment from 2020. Back in 2019, the first time I was ever tempted to do an episode on the Kennedy assassination related to a theory from Bill Cooper, who claimed that John F. Kennedy was assassinated by William Greer, the person who was driving Kennedy's car on the day he was killed, and that the way that happened was that the second shooter was actually William Greer, the driver, that he pulled out a gun and shot Kennedy, and you can even see this in the Zapruder film. It's just that everybody's looking at President Kennedy, and no one was looking at William Greer, the driver, and he fooled everybody, just hiding in plain sight. Edgar Allan Poe and the Purloined Letter all over again, and conspiracy theorists love to talk about this, that the evidence is hiding in plain sight, and they just know that the general public is never going to look into the subject, but upon closer examination, what William Cooper claimed was a gun was actually a reflection of light, and there doesn't appear to be any physical object in William Greer's hand. And Mark Jacobson, who wrote the book Pale Horse Rider, which is more or less part biography and part exploration of William Cooper's works, said the exact same thing that I did, except he earned a lot more money for saying it. Yes, it's just a reflection of light, although we did come to that conclusion somewhat independently, or purely independently, because neither one of us knew who the other was. Yes, okay, that's what it appears to be in the Zapruder film. It's a reflection of light, not a handgun being held by the driver. But in 2021, I did the episode Kennedy Assassination, Did the Soviets Kill JFK? And the real reason for doing that was I wanted to draw attention to a particular point that I had noticed, and that is that not everyone is opposed to the lone gunman theory. Not everyone is opposed to Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone. Some people absolutely discredit it, but there are still supporters of the lone gunman theory. I used to have conversations with people about the Kennedy assassination, and they would be saying something to the effect of, no, it's absolutely false. It couldn't have possibly been a lone gunman. They proved it with computers. Not everyone is in agreement with that. But we do have a comment from C.S. Lewis. Yes, C.S. Lewis, author of The Chronicles of Narnia and Four Loves. I thought he had passed away, but apparently he's listening to Black Box Online Radio, maybe from beyond the grave, so to speak. Well, C.S. Lewis, I love your stuff, but he leaves the comment, it's very obvious. Ever since the media's troops killed Lincoln, media's troops shot JFK, media's troops are actors. Okay, absolutely the media is filled with acting or something, but here's something that conspiracy theorists like C.S. Lewis might want to learn, and that is that a lot of what happens in conspiracy theories are true. A lot of things are true points. They're real facts. That is something that I used to talk about all the time in the older Black Box recordings. Conspiracy theories often contain real facts. And when people would be critical of Alex Jones, they would even say that most of the time he's talking about real facts. It's just he's arranging them with some fictitious connections. There are so many real facts in conspiracy theories. And there used to be the expression that with every conspiracy theory, there's a grain of truth to it. No, it's not a grain of truth. It's actually perhaps about 50% of the conspiracy theory is true. It's just somebody might be making some claims that aren't completely certifiable. And there was one conspiracy theory skeptic who said, a conspiracy theory is blending the facts with far-out wacky ideas. And for the longest time, I misquoted that. I said it's blending the facts and the falsehoods. It rolled off the tongue a little bit better, but it's not what he said. It's blending the facts with far-out wacky ideas. That doesn't even mean that the entire second half of the conspiracy theory is false. Far out wacky ideas. It's just something that is not completely certifiable, and dealing with very, very abstract things like, okay, well, maybe these people aren't exactly in an alliance together. Maybe they just both benefited from getting somebody out of the picture, somebody such as John F. Kennedy. But I also want to read a question here from Colonel Reb, who says, you ever listen to the Lone Gunman podcast, Ned? No, I haven't, but perhaps I should in the future. I mean, I'm going to be doing some more things with the Kennedy assassination down the road, and I'm just hoping that there will be, just perhaps some new take on the subject, some new observation or way that I can connect the dots. Here's hoping. The next comment comes to us from Pedro Fernandez, who says, of all the subjects you've touched on, this was the lamest. To even imply that the dupe killed by Jack Ruby had shot the president is pure fiction. Okay, Pedro, I completely follow what you're saying. You might think that, but not everyone is in complete agreement, because on the same episode, here's a comment from Mark S., who says, read Reclaiming History, Oswald did it alone. And this is the reason why I did the episode, because I wanted to just point out that a lot of people are making their claims, and they're trying to build their case about how there was a lone gunman, and it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Yes, there could be some type of conspiracy theory going on, or that there just isn't some overwhelming overwhelming connection perhaps to the CIA, theoretically speaking, but there could have been some other participant. But I said that I did a poll about the Kennedy assassination recently called Who Was Responsible for the Kennedy Assassination, and 24% of you voted for the lone gunman. There is not a universal consensus that the lone gunman theory has been debunked. 60%, however, voted for the CIA. This is just purely in alignment with everything that I've been talking to you guys about for the last 10 minutes, that the CIA theory is the leading theory, but the lone gunman theory has not been discredited. And 2% said the KGB, Oswald and his connections to Russia, and 7% said organized crime, which actually I think is rather low, because when I read off a poll from a different website back in 2020, and I mean, I didn't remember that, but I had it in the comments section. So the mafia connection was actually voted #1 by a different Kennedy assassination website. And we have a comment from Barry Lauber who says, individuals within the United States government, the military-industrial complex, and the CIA also involve Louis Baines Johnson, LBJ that is, Louis Jolyon West, that's Dr. Jolly West, Sidney Gottlieb, Allen Dulles, far more than just one lone gunman. Now, here is an important theory that needs to be discussed, no matter whether you're thinking CIA, KGB, LBJ, Lyndon Johnson, benefited extraordinarily from the Kennedy assassination. How do we know this? How do we know this? Because he got to be president. It's as simple as that. Now, does that mean that he actually set the whole thing up? I don't even think that that is a leading theory that I have. As you can tell, I'm not exactly committed to any single theory. I definitely have doubts about a lone gunman, but I'm pointing out that it has not been completely debunked to everybody's satisfaction. That is one point that I do stand with. But yes, LBJ benefited enormously, and he obtained power, and he was able to climb up more quickly in the political rankings following the assassination of President Kennedy. The next comment comes to us from Tony Smith, who says, Secret Service accidental discharge of gun. And Tony wrote this out in a larger comment by saying that what he is talking about is that the reason why there appear to be two shooters is a Secret Service agent accidentally fired a gun in response to the first shots, and the gun went toward President Kennedy, the bullet went toward President Kennedy, and that's the explanation. And of course they would want to cover that up because they don't want to show anything about how the Secret Service was responsible for the death of a president. That is not the same theory as William Greer, the driver, pulling out a gun and shooting President Kennedy. That would have to have been a different person. I just wanted to be very clear about that. And the next comment comes to us from BuyMeACoffee, who says, it was one guy, Lee Harvey Oswald. I used to be in the conspiracy camp about it, but came to see that it was a complete hogwash and a colossal waste of one's precious time to get sucked into. When you learn about Lee Harvey Oswald himself, you start to understand that he very well had the capacity to do it, and he did do it. If you've ever been to the Dealey Plaza in Dallas and looked at the book depository and the spot where the car passed, it is not as far as it appears on TV, and not as hard as one would think. There was a recent interview I would recommend everyone watch with Paul Gregory, who knew Oswald and his wife in Dallas. Since I can't link something in the comments section, just go to the Hoover Institution's YouTube page, and it is called Lone Gunman, the Man Who Knew Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, one person who would agree with you is David Aronovich, who was the author of Voodoo Histories, a conspiracy theory skeptic book, and he became somewhat famous in 2012 for debating Alex Jones on the British program The Sunday Politics. But he talked about how he is very doubtful of all conspiracy theories, but the one conspiracy theory that pulled him in was the Kennedy assassination, and he actually bought into that for a very long time, and he had an almost identical switch like Bayou Kurt did here. But one person who would disagree with you is the comedian Bill Hicks, because more or less what Bill Hicks said was that if you were to actually go to the book depository, you would say, no fucking way. Maybe if Oswald was hanging by his toes. Okay, this is something that we just have to simply be aware of. We have not completely reached a type of equilibrium consensus where everybody is thinking in the same way. Now, in some theories in the true crime world and the conspiracy theory world, we might be in an almost universal agreement that this person was responsible, or that these were the participants, or it had to have come from this particular source, but not everybody is in agreement with the Kennedy assassination. Going back to an older comment from David DeVault, who says, "I heard of serious Nazi presences in." Or sorry, excuse me, I misread that. I heard of a serious Nazi presence in South America at the time. I also heard of a U.S. military presence in that region afterwards. Well, of course, there was a Nazi presence in South America. Many Nazis went from Germany to Argentina and other parts of South America, but the Argentina connection gets discussed very frequently. There's even the alternative conspiracy theory that Adolf Hitler faked his own death and actually passed away in Argentina, although that's not widely accepted. But one person who wanted to talk about the Nazi connection to the Kennedy assassination was Mae Brussell. Mae Brussell was the host of Dialogue Conspiracy, and she had a lot of insightful statements about all sorts of true crime cases and theories out there. And even with the Manson family, Tom O'Neill has received a lot of credit for his book Chaos when he's talked about the possibility of Charles Manson being a CIA informant. But Mae Brussell was talking about that in the 70s. When you go back and listen to her show, you can hear the stuff she's saying, "I think this guy was an informant for someone." Now, she didn't say CIA informant, but she said for someone, so it definitely is an idea that she expressed. But Mae Brussell was primarily known for her explorations into not only the Kennedy assassination, but also the murder of Lee Harvey Oswald, because of course Oswald is shot by Jack Ruby. And she wanted to point out that even though Oswald was labeled as a presidential assassin, he was still murdered. And I mean, her daughter also saw Lee Harvey Oswald on the TV, and she said she felt sorry for him. So Mae Brussell began to investigate, and of course she's not only talking about Oswald's murder, but she's definitely talking about the assassination of President Kennedy as well. And the point that she wanted to make is that Nazis also came to the United States of America, not only Argentina, but the United States of America via Operation Paperclip. And there's actually this three-way element of planning involving the CIA, organized crime, and the Nazis. Maybe she is the loudest voice on the Nazi influence on getting President Kennedy assassinated. Now, on the one hand, you might be thinking, well, you began the show talking about the Israeli Mossad and, okay, that Israel and pro-Israeli elements of the CIA, pro-Israeli elements of organized crime. Well, then what on earth are you doing even talking about an alternative conspiracy theory involving Nazis? Is it the Israelis or the Nazis? Number one, as I said previously, I'm not endorsing either one of those theories. I'm simply exploring them. And number two, there is a very deep conspiracy theory culture. People who don't even think that it's conspiracy theories. They're just simply calling themselves independent investigators, and they're looking at how the world functions, and they have uncovered a certain observation about the power structure in the entire world, on the globe, on the planet Earth. How does this function? There becomes a time when there are elites, there are oligarchs, and there is the few, and the power is reserved for the few, and they do not care at all about Nazis or Israelis or any of these labels. It is only about power for the oligarchs, and that's what all of these deep-hearted conspiracy theorists are trying to tell people. And I don't say conspiracy theorist as a bad term, only simply meaning conspiracy, two or more people hiding the truth, usually for a malicious reason. There are people who are trying to preserve this existing power structure, and you will have things like Jews and Nazis working together. Henry Kissinger got accused of being a Nazi. Milton Friedman got accused of being a Nazi, because it's all about power structures, and those who have the power do not care about anything else, about any type of political or religious affiliation. All they care about is preserving power for the oligarchs. But I would love to know what you guys think about the Kennedy assassination. You can put your ideas in the comment section down below, and maybe they will be worked into a future episode of Black Box Online Radio. Anybody can write the show at blackboxonlineradio@aol.com. You can also get me on Facebook. My personal Facebook is in the description box. And there was always BlackBoxNed88 over on Instagram. And feel free to visit the Black Box Online Radio YouTube Shorts page. Lots of new Shorts episodes are out. And that's all for me. Until next time.